Alright folks, Cloachy Pogmosh here. So, I'm not going to do this one walking around today because I'm sitting here smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, trying to get myself going for the day. I haven't been sleeping well at night. My right arm goes so numb in the middle of the night that I'm only getting about 2 hours of sleep at a time before I'm just like waking up in pain. And yesterday, it wasn't so bad today, but yesterday, my right hand when I woke up was about twice the size of my left hand. So there's that. So I'm gonna take it a little bit easier today, but I'll get back to some other stuff too. Okay, let's get back to this time economics thing that I was talking about the other day. I'm gonna try to make this short. I was talking about how when every person's born, there's an account that's automatically generated for them and it pays out dividends and all that kind of stuff. Now, on that note, that does not mean that people still aren't going to have to go out and work, because those dividends are not going to be enough money to support you for the X amount of years between. It's just as here's your little bonus for putting in your hard work for these X amount of years, okay? So this morning I was scrolling through, sorry about that, I was scrolling through my subscription feed, and I saw this post. It was called, Don't Forget the Farmers, okay? So let's talk about farmers a little bit here, okay? Farmers and ranchers are really, in my opinion, the root backbone of this country. Yes, water is important, and I guess in theory, we'll say power is important, okay? But those three things are way more important than stuff, in my opinion. Now, on that note, there are things that are important that you could contribute, call into the stuff thing, but that's a different story for here and there. Okay, so farmers. Let's talk about farmers for a second. Same thing. If you own a farm, okay, you get an account created. If you decide you want to open up a farm, we'll base it on tiers or something like that. So however many acres, how many, plants you're growing, how many heads of cattle you have, things like that. You once again will most likely get a yearly dividend to make sure that you're taken care of, okay? But here's the thing, all right, and this is a kicker and it might make people mad, but I believe that since you're growing, especially if you're growing, and I would like to break it down regionally, that's just, put the country into quadrants. It can still stay the 52 states or whatever, however you want to put it, okay? Break it down into quadrants, okay? And we could still export a little bit and, help out other countries and stuff like that. That's totally fine. But we got to make sure, not that we don't want to help other parts of the world, because we're all just humans, but we got to make sure that there's enough food being grown for our people. And then whatever's left, then we can do that. And this is all, we can all talk about this kind of stuff. This is just things that, I see. All right, so back to farmers. Farmers would get a yearly dividend, on top of their already, they'll get their X amount of year dividend paid out just because they're, a citizen, all right, a human being. Because remember, life is not a game, but that doesn't mean that we can't make the world or operate like a game, okay? But life is too precious to be considered a game and be gambled on like we do, okay? So, as a group, some of this stuff and some of these numbers will definitely have to be set down and talked about as a body of people, okay? And that's where the quadrants come in, okay? So it's you could still have your mayors and your state governors, but then you will have to have a handful of people, maybe 5 or 10 people that oversee the whole quadrant, okay? Oversee their whole quadrant. And that whole quadrant can be, from the Mason-Dixon line down to Kentucky all the way up into Maine. And then, like, you know, from the Mason-Dixon line all the way down into Florida. And then maybe we'll break it down into, like, the Midwest and then the West. Okay? That's just a thought. But, you know, farmers will get a yearly dividend. And we'll sit down and we'll calculate up how much it requires to, you know, operate each farm, you know, based upon the tier scales, you know, depending on how big your farm is. But to be considered a farm, you have to be producing more than just enough food for yourself and maybe, you know, a small town or something like that. You gotta be producing, you know, a certain percentage of whatever it requires for your particular quadrant. Okay? Now, I know that it's harder to have farms in some places, but that's where the thing comes in. Well, you know, certain areas can do certain types of farming. We already do that, you know, like the north grows, you know, the northern quadrant, like I was talking about, you know, they grow a lot of corn and stuff like that, and I guess wheat, if I'm not mistaken. You know, down south does a lot of cotton. They have a lot of tree production, you know, stuff like that. Those are all still needed things. The Midwest kind of grows, you know, they have a lot of just like grains and cattle and stuff like that. And out west they do a bunch of different vegetables and, you know, things of that nature. So we all have, sorry about that, we all have our specific things that, you know, each area kind of grows. So depending on your tier and how much you're producing percentage wise for your particular quadrant, and, you know, and then there'll be a certain percentage of it that has to get distributed out, but then there's a certain percentage from each area that's getting distributed out. Okay? I just think if we break it down a little bit differently, and instead of thinking it as one big country, think of it as one big country, but break it down into quadrants, so then each quadrant kind of takes care of itself and then helps, you know, in the circle between the rest of our country and everything like that. So, but here's another kicker. To keep the cost of food low, which will help out a lot of people because food's very expensive nowadays, and I know it's kind of expensive to distribute it and stuff like that, but we're gonna have to lower the cost, or you're gonna so let's say whatever your yield is, you know, you sell it for this price, but that price technically is like a value of like half. So you're helping yourself, but you're donating to the greater good of the country, because we all need food. Not everybody is capable of growing their own food. Some people are old, you know, they may not be able to grow their own food. Maybe some people kill their own food, that kind of thing. It doesn't mean that when you go to the grocery store you don't have to pay for it, but there will be a certain amount of donation made on our crops. Okay? Now, certain types of farming, like in my opinion, cattle farming can be kind of hazardous, you know, because there's, you know, such large quantities and things like that. So we might consider some hazard pay, you know, depending on what kind of farming you do and things like that. But some of this stuff, you know, I can't have all the answers. Okay, so some of this stuff we'll have to sit down as a committee and everything like that and kind of talk about numbers and come to agreements and, you know, everything like that. But just remember, farmers, even though I want to, you know, learn how to grow my own little garden and try to be a little self-sustainable and stuff like that, doesn't mean that there won't be things that, you know, I can't grow in the region that I am or the zone that I'm in, and, you know, things of that nature. So of course I'll still have to go, just like a lot of other people that grow stuff will still have to go and buy certain products. So, but, you know, these are just thoughts and ideas that I've had, and you know, there's a few other things, and then I'm going to try and get a little bit deeper into this, but I'm going to go ahead and cut this video short right here because it might take a while for it to upload. So just remember, this is Cloachy Bogmarsh, and I'm out, and I love you motherfuckers.